Beatbox Battles.
Hello spectators and welcome to the show. It is your host, MosaicArts, here with a form of content that, as you're able to see from what it's titled as well as what it's about, it's a bit different from my normal content. It's going to be a review video. And in terms of what it's a review video of, it's a review video of Cartoon Beatbox Battles Season 1, which, as of this recording, ended almost 3.5 months ago now. And it was a crazy ride in general. That's what I will say about it. It had many high points, many low points, many in-between points, and many points that just
made me mad.
A lot of you watching have probably clicked on this video and are all like, wait a minute, what the heck is CBB? You know, cartoon beatboxing bees. I'm just kidding. What I actually mean is Cartoon Beatbox Battles. If you know what Cartoon Beatbox Battles is, or what I'm about to explain, feel free to skip to the timestamp down below the display on screen right here. Okay, you get it? Good. Cartoon Beatbox Battles is a series made by Verbalase, the self-proclaimed beatboxer from outer space, in which cartoon characters are pitted against one another in battles. But with the twist, they battle with beatboxing. Whoa, no way! Cartoon Beatbox Battles is about cartoon characters beatboxing each other? Mind blown! All jokes aside, that's the long and the short of what Cartoon Beatbox Battles is. It's basically a multitude of episodes in which different characters from different series that have similarities to each other match up against each other, such as Mickey and SpongeBob, the Joker and Pennywise, Deadshot and Deadpool, Sonic and Mario, and so on and so forth. So, what this video will basically be about is analyzing what I thought of the series. We'll be talking about the things that I liked, the things that I didn't like, and the things that really grinded my gears. With that being said, let's stop stalling like we're playing competitive Pokemon or something like that, and get started. So as I had said, we're going to look at both the positives and the negatives of the series. And of course, we're going to start with the positives and why I found Cartoon Beatbox Battles to be entertaining. I'd say that there was 4 main reasons for why this was so. For one, the beatboxes were good. Second, there are really cool homages to the respective characters who beatboxed and made a lot of references to a number of different things in their series. We got to see a lot of unique, unusual, cool matchups that you would never really see from any other lyrical battle channel. For example, SpongeBob vs. Deadpool, Patrick vs. Pennywise, and Sonic vs. Black Panther. And most importantly, they were actually good. You don't believe me? Well, instead of going through all of them in order, and analyzing and trying to break down why I think all of them are so good, here's what I'm going to tell you. I don't know music mumbo jumbo like music theory. So instead, I'm going to let you guys take a listen to some of these beatboxes as to why they're so good. So here you go. There wasn't just a bunch of personality displayed in the beatboxes, but there was also a lot of funny references. For example, Sonic's beatboxes were based off of his iconic themes of Green Hill Zone, as well as Chemical Plant Zone in his 2 beatboxes. In the case of Patrick's beatboxes, there was also a lot of funny references too.
No.
For example, in his fourth beatbox, we saw a thing where he had done heel dancing, as well as wearing a gorilla costume as another reference. And all of them, despite doing this, they display Patrick as acting silly and dim-witted, even though the music, or like more accurately, the beatboxes he was making were all absolute bops. And then of course you have Pennywise's beatboxes, which are creepy and unnerving, but even then, they still slap. Now, you guys may have noticed, again, for those of you unfamiliar with this series, that as I've been talking about this season, certain characters had multiple beatboxes. Like I've been saying, Sonic 2, Black Panther 3, as I had displayed earlier, Patrick 4. And you might be wondering, like, wait, why do some characters have multiple beatboxes while some characters only had one? Well, the reason that this was the case is because, as I'm going to talk about, this series had what is called, what I'm going to call, a tournament format. Basically what the idea of it was, after each episode, people were to vote on which characters that they believed won that round, and whatever character got the most votes in that episode would go on to, as Verbalase would say,
to the next round.
And so, as a result of something like SpongeBob winning episode 1 against Mickey Mouse, in episode 9 onwards, we got to see the winners of the first 8 episodes matched up against each other later on in the series. And in regards to who it was that won each of those first 8 episodes, instead of going through all of them with you, I'll instead display on the screen now who it was that won each of the episodes. And the system was honestly pretty cool, because what it did was, as I had mentioned earlier, it allowed us to see a lot of matchups that there's no way we would have ever seen otherwise if this weren't done. Like, for example, do you think anybody would have had Patrick and Thanos go against each other in a lyrical battle if this didn't happen? Do you think anybody would have ever had Sonic and Black Panther go against each other in a lyrical battle? Do you think anybody ever would have had Patrick and Deadpool go against each other in a lyrical battle? Yeah, I don't think that would have happened. Like, I really don't think that would have happened. Other than maybe, you know, SpongeBob vs. Deadpool, because the characters do have a lot of similarities to each other. No idea, though, if they would. But, you'll notice, it seems like I'm already done talking about the positives, which, to go over what they were one more time, to keep these in mind, the reason that this series was good was the beatboxes were good, they were cool homages to the characters, we got to see matchups that we would have never gone to see otherwise, and well, they were actually good. But, here's the thing about the tournament system. What was one of the biggest positives of the series, were also one of the biggest flaws of the series at the same time. Kind of like a double-edged sword, in a way. And with that being said, I think this statement makes a good segue in the next discussion of this review, which, if you remember what the video is titled, should be really clear. With that being said, this brings us to... As you can see from the title, not everything that happened in this season was something which, well, that I felt was on the positive side. And all of it hinged on what was my final point on the why I found the series entertaining section. Namely, the tournament system. One of the reasons for why a lot of the positives of the series were a thing was also, on the contrary, the reason that many of the negative things about it happened. With that being the case, let's run down the list. For starters, it made things really, well, competitive. Commonly, in comment sections, not that I'll display too many examples on the screen, you'll just have to take my word on it, mainly on Verbalase's Discord and YouTube comment sections, and sometimes on CBB YouTubers' videos, or more accurately, people who talk about CBB on their channel but mainly do other stuff, would get into a lot of heated arguments about like, no, this character's gonna win, this character's gonna win, no, this character's gonna win.
What are you talking about? Obviously this character's gonna win. This character's probably gonna win against such and such.
It would often lead to situations where people would often be trying to call matches before they were really ever decided at all. And to add to this, oftentimes when a character would lose, there would be toxic people lamenting lamenting people for being upset about this being so. Though, I'll be honest, I only recall one extreme situation in which this was the case, being episode 12. We'll get to that later. From what I recall, I didn't really see this happen in any other cases, though I can be mistaken. And given how Verbalase handled a lot of the characters' losses, it felt like whenever a character was eliminated from the tournament, in other words, they were voted out, they lost to their opponent, they were just straight up killed off. And you don't know what I mean when I say this. As an example, when Thanos lost episode 10, at least until episode 14, he just didn't show up. Period. No cameos, no appearance, nothing. Literally just a mention at the beginning of the episode he lost, but he didn't appear in person. A stronger example, though, would be when Goofy lost in episode 14. After he lost in episode 4, he didn't appear again until episode 15. Episode 15! Literally the last episode of the entire season. As another example, when Sonic lost episode 12, he didn't appear again for the rest of the entire season. And again, we'll talk about episode 12 later, but as other examples, Darkseid, he lost in episode 7, didn't appear again for the rest of the entire season. Batman in episode 6 did not appear again for the rest of the entire season. And even when a character did return after losing, it was oftentimes not until ages after the character had lost. Which of course, inevitably, would be a massive problem. Another reason, in all honesty, that the tournament system was doomed to be controversial from the start was the fact that when a character lost, there would be no more beatboxes from that character for a long time, or in some cases, not at all. Remember, Cartoon Beatbox Battles is a fully animated, fully drawn, fully monetized, fully funded series. Verbalase literally hired a bunch of animators to work on new episodes for him while he handles writing the episodes. So new episodes take a long time to come out. So if a character lost, odds are, if a character has to wait like 6 episodes to beatbox again, that could literally mean 2.5 years due to how long it takes to make new Cartoon Beatbox Battles episodes. And if that character wasn't planned to return in a future bracket, well, tough luck. That character, their beatbox style, sometimes even their very presence in the show, is gone forever. And with this being the case, it's not unreasonable to see why this would cause so much controversy in that way, and why it would make things so competitive, and why people would get so upset when their character loses, because odds are, they're not going to see them again. And on that note, there was a certain set of rounds in which this was made really relevant to being the case. For what I'm talking about, I am talking about the round 2 brackets. Why do I bring up the round 2 brackets? In my opinion, the round 2 brackets were probably the lowest point of the entire series. Why do I think that they were the lowest point of the entire series? Well, why don't we run through each episode individually, saving episode 12 for its own section because I have a lot to say on that episode. So why don't we do this real quick? This bracket, out of all the ones in round 2, was honestly the most tame out of all of them. The writing and jokes were pretty moderate, and they made sense. There wasn't a clear sign of bias on Verbalase's end, and regarding the voting, the only real controversy that really happened is that it's speculated that though SpongeBob was winning early on, later on it was somehow Deadpool was winning, which caused people to believe the voting was rigged somehow. However, this is something I can't personally substantiate as I wasn't there for the early days of the voting, so it doesn't have much relevance or notability to this due to it. Given how SpongeBob had just lost the previous episode, this would lead to the audience having some degree of bias in Patrick's direction. Keep in mind, not everybody, but I would imagine there would be a decent number of people who would have some bias for Patrick because of this. Another thing to keep in mind too is that in this episode, Thanos was kind of out of character. Maybe Endgame had something to do with that, since he was actually betrayed more like in Endgame than Infinity War, and Patrick ultimately won despite the popular opinion. In terms of what I mean when I say this, basically, after the episode had happened, many people in the comments, myself included, said they felt like Thanos had won this matchup. But despite that, the voting on the poll saw Patrick winning. So what this makes a lot of people speculate is that people were just voting Patrick on the character, like just because SpongeBob was. Now, if he actually was or not is a whole nother question entirely, which I will address later on in this video, but I'm just talking about in regards to why it was such a bad episode to people. The main takeaway of this episode was, well, Root almost won because in my and many others' opinions, more so others' opinions, he was being voted on the character, and a lot of people were scared that Groot, a character that literally can't even talk, is completely silent, is completely mute, cannot speak words, can literally only say, "I am Groot." A lot of people found the prospect of Groot winning silly, and I guess Verbalase found this silly too, because in the case of this, Verbalase actually intervened and said he feels like you're voting on the character, so for that reason, he had Pennywise win instead, because around the same time he had this system brought in called comment voting, which comment voting, we'll actually talk about it right now actually, because it's important. Basically, the way comment voting worked is that Verbalase in the comment sections of videos, he would make 2 comments, and on each of these comments, we would pick a character to vote based on who we thought won. The whole problem with this system, though, was that because Verbalase could only pin 1 comment, this led to him being biased when it came to whose comment he decided to pin. In some cases, neither comment got pinned at all. And so what this would lead to is that oftentimes the pinned comment would get way more votes because people couldn't vote for the character that didn't have the pinned comment. This is something that affected the voting of episode 11, 12, and 13. Before in episode 14, 15, Verbalase returned to the normal polls on his community tab, because around the time that he made this change, the reason he made this change was that YouTube, being, you know, who YouTube normally is, decided it was some genius, great idea if they were all like, why don't we get rid of the polls? Nobody likes having polls on the sides of videos, so let's just get rid of them.
Nobody liked that.
Because of what I just said. As a result of this, he had to resort to making comment voting, which, for the reasons I just said, the fact that oftentimes one comment would get buried, because barely anybody would vote on it, or, more accurately, he would pick a comment to pin. It made voting really unfair, and affected not just this episode, but the 2 episodes following this. Speaking of one of those, let's talk about that episode now. So first off, let's talk about the elephant in the room when it comes to this episode. Namely, the fact that around the time that this episode was set to premiere, IRL, an unfortunate event had just taken place. People may know what it was, but to inform those who aren't aware of this happening, the real-life actor of the Black Panther, Chadwick Boseman, passed away in his home as a result of colon cancer. Needless to say, people were really sad to hear that this was the case, because people love the Black Panther movies. So as a result, of course, they'd be sad that the actor passed away due to that. But also, for why I'm mentioning this, it's a common speculation that in the CBB community, due to the actor's sad and untimely death in line with this episode's release, it's speculated that people voted for Black Panther to honor the actor. In fact, if you watch the episode, at the start there was even a dedicated to Chadwick Boseman right when in the preview at the start of the episode. In regards to my own thoughts on this, I consider it a possibility, as this series had a lot of times where currently happening events on behalf of certain characters lend them being popular at the time of the video's release, and gives them an advantage. More on this later, by the way. And as a result of this, people would want to show the results of the actor, so it is a possibility. Obviously, it's not for certain that this happened, but it's still something that one needs to consider is a possibility that could have happened. But hey, enough about the outside circumstances and controversy regarding this episode. We're here to talk about why the episode itself was such a train wreck. Starting off, and you see this right when the episode begins, in this clip.
What's up? I'm Son. I don't care. Your movie was terrible. The only reason people went to go see it is because Jim Carrey was in it.
For starters, I feel like both Sonic and Black Panther were really out of character. If you see how the two are portrayed in their respective medias, like Sonic in his games usually, and Black Panther in the movies that he's in, there's just a lot of things that they say that, if you just go back and watch the episode, in fact, I'll link it right here on the screen, just do not fit with them as characters. And not only just don't fit with them as characters, but if you watch the previous episodes they were in, episodes 6 and 8 respectively, even in that regard, their character really didn't fit. You can go back and watch and see what I mean. But yeah, that's one of the ways I feel about them. And along with them both being out of character, the script just felt really biased against Sonic. If you're wondering what I mean, well, let me just give you a few samples of some of the lines that Black Panther says to Sonic to reflect what I mean. So there was not only that, but you'll notice there was one specific line I left out. And the reason I left out this line is, well, it really stuck out to me. So let me just play it now.
You may think your performance was good, but no matter how hard you try, despite your last battle, you will never be as cool as Mario.
Ooh, Black Panther. Even I felt that one.
So, in this line, Black Panther says what is basically a super, I don't know what I should call it, like, strong opinion that a lot of people have around the internet, that a lot of people try to present as fact, when really, the whole thing about that line is that, well, That's Black Panther's opinion. That isn't a fact about Sonic, no matter what people try to claim about it being fact. No, that's your opinion, that Sonic will never be as good as Mario. You can't say it's an objective thing when it's literally an opinion, when it's literally a subjective take. My bigger problem too with it is that the fact that it mentioned Mario to begin with, and the reason I feel like this is such a problem is the fact that, well, if you look at every other character, none of them mention the other characters that their opponents face. Spandau doesn't talk about Deadshot, Deadpool does, but I don't feel that's the same thing as Deadpool himself faced Deadshot, so of course he would mention him. And speaking of Deadpool, he didn't talk about Mickey in his battle with SpongeBob. They also didn't talk about Goofy at all. Patrick didn't talk about Darkseid one bit. Pennywise doesn't talk about Pikachu at all. Gru doesn't mention the Joker. And Sonic doesn't even talk about Batman. And you're probably wondering, like, Mosaic, why do you have such a problem with this? Well, my whole problem with it is that I feel like it made the battle just a bit too personal, if you get my drift. Now, I hear what some people in the comments might be typing now. But Mosaics, it's cartoon beatbox battles. Aren't all the battles supposed to be one-on-one battles between the characters in a massive elimination tournament? Why wouldn't they be personal? Yeah, in that sense, they're personal, but not personal to where you touch your opponent's utter performances when really, the battle is just between you and them. You're going to take it so personal to where you're going to criticize their utter performances that weren't even against them. It's like, it doesn't feel like at that point you're just trying to beat them in a lyrical battle. It feels like you're just trying to personally attack them individually. It'd be like if, for example, a baseball team was sent off to go compete against another team for a title, and in them competing against that team for the title, they start trying to, like, smack talk the other team a bunch by telling them, like, by criticizing their other matches and how they played them, just to make it super personal, because usually people don't do that kind of thing unless it is personal, where they talk about other things like that. And given that Sonic and Black Panther are literally not even supposed to know each other, in the case of this, it just didn't make sense to do, especially with the other writing decisions that were made, as I had shown you the samples of earlier. And you're probably thinking, like, okay, big deal, Black Panther roasted Sonic a lot, but how about Sonic's roast against Black Panther? And that in turn lies the problem, in which why I say I really feel like the script was biased against Sonic. The only good roast Sonic had against Black Panther was when he said this.
Well, the only reason you're the Black Panther is because you weren't fast enough to save your dad.
Whoa, Sonic, that was lower than the ratings of your game in 2006!
And not only does he say that, but he goes on to mention it multiple other times, both during and after the battle, when Sonic's not the kind of character that laughs at somebody's dead relatives. Not only that, but as of this recording, I've actually watched Captain America Civil War a while back, and I saw that scene in which T'Challa's dad actually gets killed. And that makes me hate this writing decision even more, because the idea that Sonic would jab at him for something that personal is not part of his character at all. Not to mention, that's super messed up that he would have him say that. And you want to know something else? On top of all the examples I've already given of Verbalase having Black Panther roast Sonic in almost every single word he said, telling him you'll never be as cool as Mario, and then Verbalase saying the extra thing in what he did as if it was a fact, not an opinion, and having Sonic say all of that, and on top of everything else I've already said, having both him and Black Panther not even act in accordance to their character, there was another thing that was basically the icing on top of this disgusting cake of an episode. Namely, the voting was actually rigged! And you're wondering what happened? Well, Verbalase, and I feel like this has to do with my first point, he pinned Black Panther's comment. But I'm going to say this for anybody who's watching this. Do not harass Verbalase about this. By the time I'm making this video, the time that he did this was over a year ago. Maybe even longer by the time you're watching this. So do not harass him about this because of how long ago it was. But I'm just saying what happened. What happened is, he pinned Black Panther's comment for weeks upon weeks upon weeks for everybody to just vote on it, and even when people were criticizing him in the replies of the comment that they can't find Sonic's comment anywhere because of the fact that he pinned Black Panther's and not Sonic's, he just completely ignored it. Black Panther just stockpiled vote after vote after vote, and Sonic's comment was just left in the dust. And by the way, yeah, I've heard the rumors that Sonic's comment was pinned for one day, but the thing is, this has not been substantiated enough to say for sure that it happened, because I was there in the early voting, and I never saw Sonic's comment pinned. And even if it was pinned, it would still prove my point even farther, because as I said, Black Panther's comment was pinned for weeks and weeks and weeks, but Sonic's was only pinned for probably some super short time frame that I couldn't even catch up with if it even happened. And if you wanted to vote for Sonic, you had to jump through a billion extra hoops to find his comment. Namely, you had to dig through a whole sea of comments just to see his comment. And on top of all of this, as if the icing on top of this disgusting cake wasn't enough, an extra kick in the face is given to Sonic, in that, as I was mentioning earlier, right after Sonic lost in episode 12, he just vanished for the rest of the season. And you wanna know right when he disappeared? It was right when Cartoon Beatbox Battles was overhauled to what was in many people's opinion a far more visually appealing art style. For reference, Cartoon Beatbox Battles went from looking like this to this. And even when it came to episode 12 being recapped in episode 13, rather than recapping it in the new animation style, similar to what episode 2 did when it got recapped in episode 3, the episode instead copied and pasted the clips from episode 12, and given that Sonic, on top of this, was also not given a brief appearance at the episode's start, he was just completely left in the dust. And as if even all of that wasn't enough, Black Panther was featured in every single remaining Season 1 episode, while Sonic wasn't given a single one. And that, my spectators, is why episode 12 had its own section. There was just that much to talk about. Because of the circumstances at the time, combined with what admittedly could also just be because of Black Panther's second beatbox, like, admittedly, it honestly was pretty good quality. It could have, I'm not going to say it was for certain what it was, been what led to, well, this happening. Black Panther winning and basically robbing Sonic, despite the fact that everybody was predicting Sonic was going to win, and then that wasn't what happened at all. On the topic of character voting, though, remember what I said earlier about this series had a lot of times where currently happening events on behalf of certain characters land them being popular at the time the video's release, and gives them an advantage. More on this later, by the way. In a number of different episodes, the argument can be made that, given the circumstances around an episode's release date, the characters of which win and go on to the next round didn't win because they had a better beatbox, but rather the episode arrived at a time that was convenient to the character, or just that character was popular. Another thing that's important to put into consideration for the Cartoon Beatbox Battles is that many of the viewers of his channel are kids, given not just the art style, but many of the humor choices are used as well. there's a lot of toilet humor that's used in the episodes. Because, come on, the vast majority of adults do not like that kind of humor, but on the other hand, kids make that kind of humor all the time. Also kind of entailed by the fact that, unlike a lot of other lyrical battle channels like Freshie Canal, VRB, Camsteady, and the like, there's also no really strong language on this channel either. But yeah, let's run down the list of every situation in which character voting could have happened. Given that SpongeBob is a more popular character than Mickey Mouse, it makes this a real possibility. Though you can also argue SpongeBob which is better. The argument can be made that Gru is a more popular and beloved character than Pikachu is. Sure, the latter is more popular, but the former is more beloved. It's similar to the Mickey-SpongeBob comparison. One may be more well known, but one is overall more beloved by their respective fandom. From what I've heard regarding when this episode had released, the It movie, namely It Chapter 2, had released really recently. With that being the case, of course if Pennywise had just started a new movie, that character would be more popular at the time of release compared to Joker, who didn't have a new movie around that time. Episode 4. Once again, an argument can be made. The explanation for Patrick winning is similar to the argument in Episode 1. Both are popular, but one is more clearly beloved by fans. Episode 5. Not only is one far more popular than the other, but along with this, from back when I was more involved in the community, a lot of people have changed their opinions on this. Nowadays, a lot of people feel like Deadshot should have won instead of Deadpool, rather than what the outcome was. Similar to Episode 3, the Black Panther movie was a new release at the time of the episode's release, and with it being the case, a similar argument can be made that because Black Panther was more popular, it made a more popular candidate to vote. Even if I thought he won personally, the same argument can also be applied to Thanos. Infinity War was a new movie when this episode came out, which will of course lead to Thanos being far more popular. In my opinion, it's unreasonable to think he wasn't to some degree voted for this reason. I'm gonna be honest on this one. I know that Mario and Sonic are almost equal in popularity to each other, but in my opinion, this is a similar situation to episode 2, 1, and 4, in that both are popular, but one is more beloved than the other is. Given how SpongeBob just lost the last episode, it's not super unreasonable to think Patrick might have been voted in as people wanted Patrick to win the tournament for SpongeBob. And in fact, basically got their way. Patrick won the whole thing. And along with this, something else to remember too, is that Patrick is a popular character amongst kids, definitely more so than Thanos is. And even if Thanos is popular as a character among kids, kids will naturally favor the hero winning over the villain, which Thanos is. Admittedly, things were not as bad in this episode, other than there may be an argument that Patrick could have been voted on the character. But, given how Patrick's beatbox was written in this episode, I don't find that to be as likely. Same with episode 13. I don't feel there was much character voting that happened other than the possibility that Deadpool was only voted in so he could fight Patrick so Patrick could get revenge. I however do think that there was a decent chance Patrick was voted by character as a number of reactors, and I consider this to be credible as commonly reactors' opinions tend to correspond with the popular opinion, as well as the commenters. Many of them thought Deadpool won. I myself thought Deadpool won too. Yet Patrick had more votes despite this being the case. And all these accusations of character voting happening, if they had happened or not is something you can judge on your own, but all these accusations is what led to something else in the CBB community. when it came to the closure of the series, it was many people's opinion that, well, it was very underwhelming. For starters, there was next to no cameos. Like really, you would think that given this was like the final episode of the entire season, that there would be characters like Mickey, Batman, Thanos, though...
To be fair, he did kind of show up last episode. You can even see him right here. Deadpool's riding on his shoulders and stuff. Yeah, that is a thing.
Sonic, and of course, everyone's most favorite character that should have showed up, just kidding. And because of the fact that there wasn't many cameos, some people were even hoping every character would come back in the finale. Nothing even close to this happened, so some people were a bit let down by this, and as a result, some people were kind of let down by this. The beatboxes themselves too were even kinda underwhelming too. Sure, they got the job done, but in regards to being finale beatboxes, a lot of people shared the sentiment that on their own, they did the job, but as finales to what at this point was a 15-episode affair, an intense elimination tournament, in a series that had been going on for 5 entire years now. It left me wanting more from it, and as well as several other people too, from what I've heard. And along with this, I feel it wasn't written with it being a finale in mind. The reason I feel like this is, well, it feels like when Verbalase wrote the episode, he didn't write it as something that had been being built up since episode 9. And depending on how you look at it, even as far back as episode 5, if you consider that to be foreshadowing. This also goes back to my cameo point. Where the heck were all the other characters? Why did next to none of them show up other than SpongeBob and a couple others such as Groot and the like? And sure, Deadshot, Black Panther did appear, but the thing is, they only appeared because they bowed Deadpool, not because they were in the series. And as a result, on top of everything else that made it a mess, it even left off on a kind of underwhelming note too. And a lot of people felt like episode 14 was a better finale for the series than the last episode was. In regards to what could have been done so that many of the faults of the series didn't happen, there's several things that could have been done. As several examples, let's run down the list a little bit. For one thing, Verbalase could have given the losers a few more cameos. It would be a rather simple solution that, surprising to me, wasn't done more, putting into perspective just how little it was done. Really, of all the 16 characters, when it came to the 14 that lost before episode 14, most of them either made no further appearances or took a really long time to return. You think I sound crazy? Let me just run down the list real quick. Mickey hasn't returned in a single episode to this day. Pikachu has only made one small appearance in episode 15, but nothing else. Joker was actually treated pretty decently, cameoing twice after losing episode 13 in both episode 10 and 15. Goofy didn't cameo again for a really long time after losing. Again, remember how long these episodes take to make. Deadshot was the pinnacle example, in my opinion, of how losers should have been handled. He cameoed immediately after losing. He cameoed in a decent handful of future episodes, such as episode 7 got mentioned in episode 10, and cameoed in both episode 14 and 15, and still got mentioned by other characters every so often, in a way that, in my opinion, wasn't really intrusive. Batman hasn't made a single appearance to this day since losing episode 6, Darkseid. Similarly, the Batman hasn't cameoed in a single episode to this day. Can you believe that? Mario was handled pretty well. Cameoed in episode 9, but didn't return again until episode 14, and he only got mentioned in episode 12. SpongeBob was also handled like Mario pretty well. He cameoed at the start of episode 10, and then also appeared in episodes 13, 14, and 15. Thanos took a while to return after he lost, not returning until episode 14. Though this could have been intentional given the character Thanos is, was still a long time either way though. Groot was handled decently, appeared in episode 13 and 14. Sonic. See the episode 12 section of this video. Sonic's treatment alone, in fact, is probably why this section in the video exists at all. Pennywise stopped appearing after losing, only making a small cameo, not really handled well either. Black Panther. Black Panther lost really late on in the series, to be honest. So, even though he only returned in one episode after losing, it still worked out well. This is one thing that could have been done as a way of not making the characters feel truly gone after they lose in a respective battle. An alternative solution to this that actually would have been a much better idea would have been, well, not doing the tournament system to begin with. Yeah, I can hear you slamming your keyboard now. Let me explain. If none of the above things have been done, another solution was as simple as just not doing the tournament at all. Because really, when it comes down to it, many of the reasons that this series was so heated was the structure that it had to begin with. As we see from many other lyrical channels around the web, such as ERB, which means Epic Rap Battles by the way, Freshie Canal, Camp Study, and even Kalobi Productions, all the channels that do rap battles in one-off scenarios, all their communities, at least as far as I know, are very chill and civil. And I feel in every case, it's because, unlike in Cartoon Beatbox Battles where every episode there was massive stakes in it, nothing is really at stake in any of those other series where this was the case the entire series. So if a character had a style somebody really liked, but that character lost, it can be difficult to take. And I hear some of the arguments some people on the keyboard might be making right now. But with the tournament system, you can see how far the characters have come in their good performances. But then there's the problem of this. What if you don't happen to be a fan of any of those finalist characters? What if all your favorites were eliminated early on in the tournament? Or, on top of this, you don't really feel personally like any of the finalists deserve to make it as far as they did. If you're one of those people, it's kind of hard to view as a special thing in the way that others would. But funny enough, it's also very possible that if it wasn't for the tournament system existing in the series at all, that this very video wouldn't even exist, to be honest. As really, there wouldn't be much to talk about, as it'd be like just about any other lyrical battle channel that exists out there. After having given all my thoughts on the series, both the good and the bad and the ugly, it's about time that we give our closing thoughts and basically restate all of our previously stated points. As I had said before, there was many positives that as a series Cartoon Beatbox Battles had, but also many negatives. It was good because of the fact that it had a good number of positives in that the beats were good and that they were catchy, they were cool homages to the said characters, we once again got to see cool and unique matchups, and once again, the episodes and beatboxes were good. But on the contrary, there was also a bunch of negatives that made it a mess, which again were the fact that the series was really competitive. All the round 2 brackets alone, episode 12 all by itself, even other round 2 brackets notwithstanding, the character voting, at least what's been alleged to, the infighting and drama within the series' community caused by this, and the fact that, well, the closure was kinda underwhelming. So, in other words, what it is that I thought of this series was what I already said when I titled this video. It was an entertaining mess. With that being said, though, this ends the review of Cartoon Beatbox Battles Season 1. With that being said, MosaicArts is leaving the building. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe for more, and check out my currently ongoing series at the moment, such as Legends Arceus, my Minecraft Hardcore World, and also stay notified for edited videos of Super Mario All-Star Attack, as well as Whisper Assault. And until next time, spectators, see you next show.